So, I'm Reverend, it sounds really formal when you do the whole thing. I am Reverend Dr. Bob Deen, or Robert Alva Dean III, which is a whole big mouthful. My pronouns are he, him, and wow, I'm still blown away by the song. Sorry, give me a second. So, how much good? We're surrounded by so much good, and we see it and we feel it here, and it's so wonderful. This is a test from last week. How much good is ours? All of it. And how much do we get to use? As much as we can embody. Embody. So how do you embody good? So we're going to talk a little more about today. One of the ways is blessing everything and everyone. Including what? The bills. Oh, bless especially the bills. Bills are this wonderful opportunity you have to spend money and have it not be paid for yet. Have somebody else carry the responsibility for it. You get free electricity until you stop paying your bill. But when you pay your bill, that's like saying thank you for allowing me to have this electricity. Yeah, that's blessing. We bless all of it. It's wonderful. So the title of today's talk is Standing on Water. Has anybody ever tried that? Only in the deep dark winter, and the first time I rode in a car driving across a lake, it was terrifying because I knew what was underneath it. And yet there was plenty of ice. It was, I don't know how thick it was, but it was enough that there were a lot of cars out there driving on the ice. And it was kind of interesting. Don't recommend it around here, I don't think. The title of this came from the idea someone mentioned. I was in a workshop 2 weeks ago where we were talking about, or 3 weeks ago, in between being here and coming back, where a whole group of people were gathered exploring what is our part in creating this business of creating a world that works for everyone. And what is my part in creating, we have two parts to that intention that we have at the national level of CSL. The first is awakening humanity to its spiritual magnificence by creating a world that works for everyone. That's a big order. That works for everyone to their greater good, not that just works for what they're settling for, which is what I heard, the way I heard that the first time I heard it. I thought, well, it already works for everyone according to their belief. You believe in lack and poverty, you'll never get anywhere, then that's where you are. But that's not really working for them. It's because there's always that feeling inside of us that there should be more. So we're working towards and thinking about a world that works for all of us and for everyone. And what's my part? What are my gifts that I bring? What is the part of me that needs to come forward? How do I need to understand myself? Well, the first step in a world that works for everyone is a world that works for me. And that's not the world out there we're talking about. That's the world in here. My inner self, those inner voices. That part of me that's going, hey, Bob. Sometimes it's my mother's voice, but it's really not her voice. It's my inner voice of critique and criticism and that brain part of me that goes way back in time that I'm evolved from to where we were always ready to run when we needed to be, you know? Are the dinosaurs going to come eat us? You know? That part of our brain still works constantly, all the time. So anytime you see something that looks like it might be danger, your brain goes off. Okay, let's get busy here. What are we going to do? How are we going to fix this? Where are we going to go? Where are you going to hide? What you going to do? And it gets in the way of recognizing who you really are. That all those things out there that seem to be a danger are nothing. So at the end of our workshop, as we were doing our wrap-ups and everybody was sharing, one very usual kind of person to be in that kind of workshop, and this is being very judgmental in a way, because on the surface there's a judgment, but underneath it was beautiful. This man works in construction, not highly educated, and kind of thinks in concrete ways. You know what I'm talking about? You talk about the bridge, and he just sees the bridge. He doesn't see the whole picture necessarily. Except when you talk to him a little more, you find out this man sees not only the bridge, he sees the ideas that went into it and the construction and the structure and all of it. And what holds it up? Absolutely. So he said when it was his time to wrap up, he said several things, but the piece that just made my heart break and break open was that phrase, it's like we're standing on water. We're standing on water. We live in a world that is different from the world than a way the world has ever been. I was looking back at some numbers for another project I was working on the other day, and I graduated from high school in the 60s. I won't tell you what year. And I wondered, I was trying to find out how many people were in my high school class. It was either 28 or 38. And that was the only school in the county where I grew up. And I looked at, and instead what popped up was that year in the state of Florida, less than 3,000 people graduated from high school. Wow. In the whole state, according to the Department of Education. And I thought, you know what? That seems impossible to me until I go back home and go back to those places in Florida that used to be tiny that are now humongous before the influx of all of the folks coming down there to retire, before they bulldozed the swamps and built condominiums, before all of that was wiped out. And I thought, you know, our whole world is like that. We've had more people on the planet, so many more people, and I haven't looked up those numbers, but it's in the billions more on the planet now than we had when I graduated from high school. Yeah. And we have all these things we attribute problems to. Nobody kind of mentions that. Maybe the reason we're getting such a huge influx of folks from all over the world wanting to live here is that we got a lot of land. We got some space. And we sometimes treat them well. Yeah. So that's just one of the little pieces about standing on water. So how do we create a world that works for all of these billions? And how do I create a world of peace, harmony, love, and joy, and those wonderful attributes that we attribute to this place in myself? That becomes a real question. One of the ancient teachers, I hesitate to use the name because I know people sometimes flinch, and especially if you've had some abuse by other religions, so I'll just call him the great teacher, said we need to walk by faith, not by sight. How many of us how much of the time is there a conflict and a struggle between those two things? I'm walking by sight. I see what's all around me. I see these numbers. I see the traffic. I never expected to hear people complain about traffic here because it's such a smaller town than where I live. But holy Moses, you people have traffic. If nowhere else on that one street out there, it's like a whole town converges on that, a whole city, about dusk and dark. And then I figured out that's because all the shopping's out this direction, or one of the reasons. And so it's like we find all this stuff, but that's looking by sight. Faith tells me my GPS will take me where I want to get, traffic or not. Faith tells me I can be where I need to be and want to be not because of the GPS, although that helps, but because of who I am and who you are and who we are. See, my faith tells me that I am stronger and larger and bigger than what I even appear to be. I can do things that I never imagined myself doing. I've been to places in the world I never imagined as a kid that I would ever see. I would see the pictures in the encyclopedia and go, wow, wouldn't it be cool? And now I've been there. It's kind of cool. And I made it. I learned how to use the resources I have to get there. It's awesome. I'm bigger. You're bigger. We're all bigger than we appear to be. We are not just skin encapsulated egos, you know, or sacks of water. None of that. Because we are so much more. All you have to do to know that is close your eyes and meditate for a few minutes and let your mind take you out beyond your limits. One of the exercises in that is when you're meditating, try to feel the end of your nose. You can't find it. Not with don't use your hand or anything. That's cheating. But try to just be aware. Where's the end of my, how you don't know? So then see how far out you could reach and feel and be aware. And it's really amazing. We all are beyond what we appear to be. We are more than we ever imagined. Ernest Holmes says we are expressions of a divine power, a divine creativity, a divine goodness. Really? An infinite possibility. And we can say those words, but my concern for all of us, myself included, is how easy it is to forget that that really is true. That is not symbology. It's dry in here. That's not symbology. That's not metaphor. That's truth. That's reality that is borne out in our physicality if we allow it to be. Now, it doesn't mean you're a God for everybody. You're just a God of your own life. Emma Curtis Hopkins says that I am the Jesus Christ of my own life. Jesus simply means the individuation of the infinite power. Christ is the infinite power. I am the individual version of the infinite power of my life. Meditate on that for a while and see how you feel. If you feel like you're lifted off your chair, you might be. If you open your eyes to look, you won't be, but anyway. Yeah, write that down for later. Yeah, that one you need to write down and do. Yeah. And if I am the expression of the infinite individualized for me as me in my life, then I have the power within me, not out there. I have the power within me to transform myself. And as I transform myself, everything out there transforms along with me. That thing we do at the beginning of the service. You are a mirror of me. So if I change me, then I change what's out there. I stayed in a hotel once in Vegas, and it was so wonderful because they had these big mirrors in the room just near the door, just before you're going out into the world of, never tell what happens in Vegas. And I loved it because it made me look about 25 pounds thinner. It was slightly concave, I think. And it just, I look so good in that mirror. I was ready for anybody. You can't lose weight by changing the mirror. I still weighed the same thing. But I felt different, and I thought different, and I thought skinny, and I had a great time. Yeah. This is being broadcast to the world. I will take anything from Vegas that you'd like. Anyway, go ahead. Yeah. Standing on the water. See, that's what we're doing when we become aware of who we are, because we no longer need to be held up by what appears to be under us. It doesn't matter whether the water is ice or liquid. We stand on it because we know who we are. So if there's great turmoil and change going on beneath our feet, it's okay. Because we know we are eternal beings, and this earth and this life itself is eternal. So it's all going to keep on going. And maybe we go around and around and around many different times, or maybe we just go on to something different. I don't know. I haven't done it yet. But when I know, I'll come back. No. Anyway. One of the ways I really learned for the first time that I don't have to be limited by this physical self or this place was at a workshop for ministers and practitioners and others, and I was joyfully reminded of it this week, where we walked on hot coals. Long spread of hot coals. Now, I thought walking on water would be maybe easier, but or at least not hurt as much. So, but walking on coals, and it was probably 15 feet or 20, and the thing was about 4 feet wide. And it was a church down in Asheville. Thank you. And so some of you, how many of you have done that? Okay, you see, I see. Look around you. These are folks who know what that means. Walk across the bed of coals from here to yonder. And we did a whole lot of spiritual preparation. We got into that consciousness that we are not just this, that we are bigger, broader, and greater. And because what we know is that this physical body lives inside our consciousness, not the other way around. So you develop that consciousness to know you're safe and sound. And you stand in front of it, you say the prayer, you hold your arms out, you look straight ahead. That's really important. And you start walking. And you get to the other end, and your feet are just fine. They don't burn. They don't blister. Now, here's the thing. If you sit down and look at them and see, are they going to blister? They do. Why? Because you've set that idea in motion that I'm going to get a blister. It's pretty amazing. Well, I did it. And then my friend Lorna, Reverend Lorna, stepped up, and she kept panicking. She stepped back. She was determined to do it. And she saw me static. She says, hold my hand. And I thought, well, that was really sweet. So I stepped up to the side on the dirt. I couldn't reach her hand. And I'm like, oh, God. I did it once. Is it going to work again? And I thought, get that out of my head. So we stepped back and did a little treatment. And then I held her hand, and she held my hand, and we walked it, and both came out just fine. That's because we're more than what we appear to be. And that's because this God we talk about, this power, this spirit, doesn't live out there somewhere. Now, it is out there, but not just out there. There's only one. It's right here. I often ask, now I teach a lot of practitioners, and I teach that second year of prac last year for CSL. And the first question I ask the students for our class is, so when you release a treatment, which way do you release it? You all know what treatment is, right? Yeah, I know you do. I'm being smart. Which way do you release it? Out to the universe? I hope not, because there's no out to release it to. There's only in. I release it to the power of God within me, to spiritual law that is present within me. Now, yeah, it's also out there, but I don't have access to it out there. I only have access to what's in here. Because you're a mirror of me, and I'm a mirror of you, and the whole universe, the world around us, is a mirror. It says back to us what we say and what we think. Emma Curtis Hopkins, again, she was a teacher of teachers, if you don't know who I'm talking about. She taught Ernest Holmes, she taught the founders of Unity and the founders of divine science, and on and on and on it goes. And she was an amazing woman. She traveled the country in the 1800s by train, and she'd stop at a city. She'd teach for a month. She'd teach a system by which they could go deeper, her students, and then she'd take the train to the next town. And she had it worked out, so she'd circuit back to the same places year after year. And she developed this new thought, this science of mind. And she used the term science of mind. She may have been the first, I'm not sure. But she was able to take this message out there in a way. She was a very powerful healer along with everything else. Her name was Emma Curtis Hopkins. And she's got tons of stuff. Her material is a little challenging to read because it's written in 18th century metaphysics, which is really a different way of talking than what we're accustomed to. But there's a great little book that tells her story and does her teaching in our vernacular that we use today. And right now that name won't come to me, but we'll talk about it later. Okay. I'll put it in the chats and the websites or wherever. But here's her quote. The world will persist in exhibiting before you what you persist in affirming the world is. Yeah. You know? The world will persist in exhibiting before you what you persist in affirming the world is. One of my mother's constant sayings was, "It's a wicked old world." She'd look at the news and she'd say, "It's a wicked old world." And I said, "Mama, stop it. Stop it." She also believed, though, however, what time is it? Yeah, I'm kind of wandering here, sorry. She also very much believed that Jesus Christ was her Savior and was protecting her from everything. And I'm not preaching for that right now, except that she lived in Florida, and there was one year where about 4 hurricanes came through and whoomp, one after another, and there was a cartoon out that showed Florida sitting up at the corner of Montana, wishing the whole could get away. People's houses were being blown away. Houses were flooded. She had big plate glass windows that looked out on her yard. She got in her rocking chair. She sat in front of that window, and she watched it. She said, "I'm not going to have any problems because I'm protected." You know what? She never had any problems. The window never got broken. It never needed to be taped up. House next door to her was completely demolished. People finally learned that if you want to be safe, go to Dottie's house. And the whole family and everybody would gather there when a storm would come through because of that faith. See, it's the faith that mattered. It didn't matter what you have faith in, as long as your faith is in the positive that you are going to have the good of the universe for yourself. And if you do that through Christ, or you do that through Buddha, or you do that through someone else, some other figure in your mind, I don't care. What matters is that you have the faith. So how do we stand on water? By faith. You know the old story. The teacher was out walking on the water, and there's a big storm going on, and the guys in the boat are fishermen. They're bouncing around, and they're all scared, and this teacher comes walking up to the boat. Well, the boat thing's kind of calm. And they're like, "How did you do that?" "Well, you can do it too. Step out on the water." You all know the story, right? Simon Peter steps out on the water. The rock. A rock standing on water. Okay, that ain't going to happen. But it did. As long as he looked up. As soon as he looked down and saw what was under his feet, down in the water he went. We have to stay focused on the what is true and what is real on the cosmic consciousness level to guide all of us through this current transition, because that's what we're going through. The world is in transition. Our whole solar system, by the way, is in transition. There are changes happening out there that we don't have any control over, and that are about bringing transformation to our world. And they will, and it will, and it may be rough before it gets better, but we keep our eye on the prize. We keep our eyes up on who we are at this level, not who we are down here. Got it? Try this with me. Think about something that's going on in the world that you're worried about, or you've had concerns about, or you're angry about. Now look down and think about it. Keep your head straight, just with your eyes, look down. Now look straight ahead, and now look up, without raising your head, but with your eyes. Does it feel different? Maybe a thought passes through that goes, maybe this is a better idea. A group of friends and I, right after 9/11 happened, which is really when this current transition hit and got to be big, and when the rest of the world came home to America. And we started imagining all of the world leaders at that time as little kids playing in the playground. And we treated, and over time, things changed. Whether that made a difference or not, I don't know, but it made a difference in us because we stayed out of our anger. We stayed out of our victimhood. You know that one, right? And we found ourselves learning to automatically shift from the need for forgiveness and forgiving those people to an awareness that there is nothing to forgive. There's only something to know and something to love and compassion to be expressed and experienced. For everybody's doing whatever they believe their part to be. Everybody's doing what they believe works in the highest and greatest good. And every one of them's important. Everyone is an expression of the divine. Yeah, but what about? Well, yep. We've all got those. But that's the place where you just, you love them, you step above it and look down, and change that. Step above it and keep looking up to the vision and the power and the goodness that life can be in a world that works for everyone. And recognizing that there is something going on here that's bigger than you and I could understand. And what we need to do is play our part. Forgiving where forgiveness needs to happen, embracing compassion where compassion needs to happen, and moving into and staying as much as possible in that space of knowing exactly who we are. Because who you are is what matters. You are an expression of the divine. That's who you are. That's why there are no... When people come in for the first time, I usually say, thank you, welcome, we already know who you are. What? We know you're an expression of the divine. You may not know it yet, but we do. So, as we move into the closing here, I'd like to see a little bit of our affirmation again. My eyes are focused upward, and my faith. What is faith? Faith with knowledge. Faith is that knowing what we know, but not knowing how or why sometimes. Faith in the good that we are. Faith in the power of life to always move us forward. My faith lifts me into the best possible now and next for everyone. And that includes for Ahava. That includes for your minister who's taking a break and doing her own spiritual work. It means loving her right on through this process. It means loving each other. Some of you don't like each other. I know that. I've been around a week. Doesn't take long. Stiff it out. Hear who thinks who. I'll tell you later if you pay me. So but that's what happens in a family. You guys are a family. And you've come together to try to express love at its best and highest place. Which means anything unlike love comes up and comes out, and it's ugly sometimes, and it's squishy, and it's messy. But if you keep talking and you keep reaching out to each other and keep expressing and embracing and having compassion and forgiving, then all of that just clears up and goes away. And that's when people start rolling back in the door. Because they're like, I want some of that. That smells good. That feels good when they walk in. They're already doing it. It's not like you haven't had that already. But I know there's a lot of concern about where we are in size and all that. Sometimes things have to compress and get smaller in order to solidify and get more connected, and then it could expand. Yeah. So if you'll come up, we're going to do a little meditation and a treatment. Because all treatment is doing is reminding us of what we already know. And it's not that we're doing treatment to make things change. You can't make anything happen. God's already doing God's job. A treatment simply lets us align with that energy flow and that power in a way that brings the highest and greatest good to us and everyone else. So, thank you. So the nice deep breath settled. Yeah, breathing in, breathing out. Let's begin with a blessing. Let's bless one another. Bless everyone sitting around you in this space, in this place. The people you're aware, you feel their energy. You know their names. Bless your favorites. Bless your least favorite. And bless this building, for it is the house of great change and great transformation. Lives have been changed here many, many times. And all the energy that's still deposited right here in these walls and these floors and this place. And breathe into that and bless it. Beyond that, bless your families. For as you are blessing all of these places and things, you are speaking the word of God as the individual expression of God. My word carries the power of the infinite, for it is in alignment with love. Yeah. And now bless your community. Stretch out further. Bless our country and all of the players involved. The people of power, the people who don't know how much power they have, the people who think they have more than they do. Just bless them all. Bless them. And by blessing them, we are awakening within each one the divine that is already there and the awareness of the divine. And bless our blessed Mother Earth. She gives so much. All that our bodies are made of comes from the earth, energized by the sun and brought into form by spirit. And bless this amazing universe in which we live. This power, this goodness, this infinite intelligence that allows us this kind of freedom, joy, and goodness. And so we align with that great truth, that great knowing, that infinite intelligence, knowing that we are expressions created within it, not out of it, but within it. So as I acknowledge and bless my own life and my own individual version of the infinite showing up as love, as joy, as power, as peace, as goodness. I looked for the world to reflect it back to me. And any areas that I am not as clean and clear as I'd like to be, I, by action of this treatment, deny any power to further manifestation of anything less than the greatest good. Instead, I stand in this greatest good with power, with peace, and with truth. I am so grateful. I am so grateful. And with that, I release, knowing this work is, for now, is done and continues to manifest in my consciousness, and then through that, the consciousness of the world. I let this be so. And so it is. Thank you.